Hello, this is Shay. The topic for today is going to be about polygamy and the Mack Game. That's the title of today's show. We will be discussing the benefits of polygamy, the downside of polygamy, and the game um, about the men who uh, want a polygamous marriage, but for selfish reasons. And so I'll be touching base on those topics. The research that I've done has been based on conversations that I've had with polygamists that had wives, sister wives, more than one wife, or by men who are working on becoming married. And when they become married, um, they plan to have more than one wife. So, just very interesting. So let's get into the topics. All right, so let's talk about the upsides of polygamy. Um, Me being a monogamous straight female, um, I've come in contact with a lot of jerks and guys that are just looking to have fun, no responsibility. You know, they're not even trying to build anything like get into a relationship for financial reasons. They're not trying to get married. They just want to have fun, and that's that. And this just the irresponsibleness. And I'm not talking about young guys. I'm talking about they're looking at 50 in a couple of years, and they'll be dead in like at least a minimum of 20. Depending on their lifestyles and stuff. But these guys are gonna, ride it till the wheels fall off. That they're bachelorette, especially black men. I think that is more so black men than any other race on the planet. That they just pretty much don't want to be in a responsible relationship. Now, mind you, I do have uncles that are marriage bound. That's what they do. They get married and they stay married. That's because they were raised in a family where the mother and father stayed married until death did them part, literally. So, um, I think you would have to see that and the benefits of it before you realize how important it is for you as an individual. Um, Let me see. I personally think that men benefit by being in a marriage situation instead of messing around with a whole bunch of women. I think that once they realize what the you know the let me see, for lack of a better word, I would say what the benefits are of being in a marriage relationship, then they would see what they've been missing. So, then if you don't have married friends, you'll never know. So, anyway, let's get into it. Um, how I started to really, really look at polygamous relationship, I was actually shocked into it. Um, what happened was I met a gentleman who told me that he was a polygamist, and his religion was Muslim. He was a Muslim, and he had two wives, and he told me they lived together. And this was like in the early '90s, I believe. We had this conversation in '95, around then, and I was kind of shocked about it. And I totally thought this guy was like the biggest player, like with the Mack Game that was so tight that he had two women that were okay with being married. And I thought that these females, these women were the most insecure, um, I think just naive, and I was like, I would never allow that to happen ever. Like, how could that's not fair? I was that's totally. I was like, that's not fair. How dare he blatantly, you know, indulge in as many women as he wants, and the females are to pretty much cater to that. I just thought it was just unfair. Um, After watching a couple of movies from Africa, they also touch the topic of polygamy as well. Like there are polygamous relationships or examples of polygamous relationships in the African movies. My favorite websites are Irako TV, IROKO TV, and IBAKITV.com. Both of them are very, very good. Um, you have to type in English in order to get the English ones, you know. But African movies are very interesting, and they can be very addicting as well. Um, but there were a few that I watched that had polygamous polygamous relationships. Um, there was a storyline that there was a very, very rich man who married his wife, and they were living in a very beautiful home, and they they were having children. They were working on having children, and he wanted a male child. He was happy that she was pregnant, but when he found out that she wasn't pregnant with the male child, he was like, I gotta do it. I have to marry another woman. And she was so heartbroken. He's like, you keep having females. I need a male child to carry my name on, So he had to bring in a second wife. And the second wife, of course, had the baby. Um, and gave him the male child. There was other scandals going on in there where the woman tried to kill the lady and her kid, and it was really crazy. But that was one of the movies that I watched, and so I was like, wait a minute, and then I mean, in a traditional sense, that made sense. So I pondered across it for a while. So I was like, how could they what woman in her right mind would be okay with sharing her man? Like, I mean, these were things that I would really, really think of. And one day, after doing a meditation, it came to me and said, well, if he had two wives, how much of a player can he be? Because he's not deceiving you. He's letting you know who the other woman is. You don't have to feel that you have to trust blindly that your man will not bring you home any STDs that he got out in the street by some unclean woman, so you don't have to feel unsafe about it. Um, you know the woman he's sleeping with, and you guys made sure that there was a medical record in place so you all were not infected in any way. Um, you can have help around the house with the children, raising the children and watching the children, teaching children, cooking for the children, cleaning the house. So, instead of one woman, now you have two to help. And also, the income of the family would be three adult payrolls instead of just the husbands or just two people. There would be three checks coming in, and if it's not three checks, two checks will be coming in, and the other third party would be enrolling or enrolled in school, working on becoming the career that she desires to be. There was another movie, I believe, where the husband was a business owner and his wife was an accountant. So he married her to help out in his business. That was part of her job, while the other wife was, I think, a nurse or a lawyer, something professional. The movie I watched that in maybe '99, I believe, and I was like, imagine, like, those are pretty good careers to have, and they can be bringing home a lot of money, and so if three of them were bringing home that, I was like, imagine how much they'll be able to do with that, invest in a business, there's so much, so it's like now you have more of the pot to stretch around. You can send your children to private school, get them the best education that they need. Invest in an extra car for the household, and maybe you can afford a nanny or something in the meantime. So there's so much you could do with the income, the third party income. So those were things that I was thinking about as well. Um, I think polygamy requires men to be, I don't even say require, I would like to say it allows men to be more responsible in their relationships. Now it's like, um, okay, you have the second woman now. You have someone to choose from. Now you have the right, now you have to be a man. You don't have to sneak around. You have, like, we gave you the extra, uh, the the versatility that you need, for lack of a better word, is like, um, now you just don't have one woman. You have a second woman to be able to, you know, I guess, flip around, or you just have the extra woman to sleep with. So, you know, there should be no excuse that you can't cheat on someone who you're married with. Like, now, you know that's something that, and if he does step outside the marriage, then he has two women, um, that he has to answer to instead of just the one. You know, it's funny. I had went into one of these groups on Facebook, and just to kind of ask some questions of how, you know these relationships work. And I've seen pictures of a husband and a wife looking for a third, a sister wife to be a part of their union, which I thought was interesting. Um, I asked a question in the group. I said, are the husbands truly happy with their polygamous relationships? Now that you have two wives, are you happy? Can you honestly say you're happy? Man, it took maybe a day and a half before I got an answer. I had one guy said, well, what's the basis of your question? I'm like, hello, answer the question. Are you happy or you not? That in itself told me he's not happy. So, I mean, there's a possibility that it may not be the nirvana that men want. I mean, they may say, oh, why don't you, I think men that don't have it would like to try to see if they can get women to subscribe to that. But once they have that responsibility, it's a handful. Excuse me, I have a cold. So it's probably something that some of them cannot handle. I mean, not for nothing. Fela had 40 wives, and the African, singer, he had 40 wives. They all danced on stage with him. You know, um, and supposedly they were all happy. You know, but that's a part of the culture. I think if you were not raised in the culture to know that you can be a first wife or a second wife, but just know that you will not be your man's only woman. Uh, if you see it, if it's common growing up, it won't bother you as much. But if it's something that you were not raised into, that's going to be a problem for most women, and as American women for the most part, they're not having it. Now there are some American women that um, have gotten married in polygamous relationships, and from what I've gotten, some they're they're okay with it. They're happy with it. Um, I don't know if they're ecstatic about it, but I do know that they're not upset, or they. The other thing is that polygamous polygamous relationships are not legal in the United States. So the woman has to have the second wife. The first wife is married to the husband, but the second wife has to have a legal document that states that if anything were to happen to either party, the husband or wife, that they can, she will benefit from, whatever resources that the couple had, or one of, like, she will get something from it. So they would have to actually go an extra mile to make sure that she's protected, you know, um, in that situation. So I mean, that's going to take a little bit effort. So if a man is willing to do all of those things, then I would have to give him kudos for that, because it's not the same as if you just meet one woman. But that's one point. I've also, let me see, make sure I'm touching everything. Um, um, okay, so let's talk about men that are not down with polygamy. Um, I hate self-disclosing, but I'm going to have to, just to make a point. Excuse me. Um, I've been in a relationship with someone. He was sort of like my first love. Um, we connected later in life. We broke up. It was like a unfinished relationship. And one day he reconnected with me. Um, he said he was looking for me, and I always wondered how he was doing. So it was kind of like a reconnection. So we spoke on the phone, and it was like old times again. It was really, but this time was a more adult relationship. It wasn't a high school thing, of course, and it was interesting. So this whole time he's telling me, maybe we should get a place together. Maybe we should do like all this stuff about anything I needed to hear. He was saying it. I realize that now, but I just thought we had this connection, that we both were twin flames, that we both were looking for that stable relationship or whatever. So, um, I find out that he's married. He was currently separated, but he did not tell me after a few months of being. He had plenty of time to let me know. I'm married, and I'm not happy. Whatever. But he just let it rock out. Like, me and him were getting married, and so he just played the game. And you know, I personally felt that I thought we had more. I thought we had something more than that, because we grew up together. We was in the same high school together, worked in the same job together. We had a little history. So I'm thinking that he wouldn't dare hide anything from me. I'm like, but that's the sickness of monogamy as well, because a lot of times when monogamy doesn't allow a man to really be honest, because if you have someone, or if you're in a situation, automatically you can't get into a new situation until you finish the old one. So that's pretty much the rules of monogamy. Um, but if he's not finished and he don't know how to end it, and it's kind of sticky, it's probably better if he doesn't tell you anything at all, which is probably the case um, of what I went through. So After doing my research in these groups, I spoke to him. After because I broke up with him, I was like, you're a liar. That's terrible. Why would you waste my time? So I was disappointed more so because he lied, not because he was actually married. I can understand that couples actually, they don't get along anymore. I understand that, but get a divorce, or if you can't afford the divorce right now, or there's too much red tape going on, the kids are involved, be honest. Let somebody know. But being that he hid it, that just ruined everything for me. I don't know how I would have responded if he told me, but would respect him more, and I think the outcome would not be totally cut him off. It'll be like, okay, I understand, but we need to keep our distance, out of respect for your marriage and the promise that you made. So, um, I spoke to him after did my polygamy research, and I was like, since you were married, what 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 stops you from just taking on a second wife? I mean, that's pretty much what you did. I mean, you were married already, and you um, started to get involved with a second woman. Why don't why don't you just subscribe to the polygamous relationship? And he was like, oh no, I'm a one woman man. That's all I need is one woman. So what he was telling me is like, um, I can only deal with one woman at a time. I'd rather cheat on one and keep the secrets instead of taking on two women and being honest. Because that's what he was doing. Like you're engaging with two women. Why not let them know about each other? Why not be honest? So it's interesting. I'm not a specialist on this at all, but I'm just putting points out there that need to be discussed because you know polygamy allows a person to be honest. Monogamy, is like it depends on the person, and it makes it easier for the person to lie because there's so many factors involved. Like you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, you don't want to lose the person. It's just so many things. So you might as well just lie, just to kind of keep your own sanity from the outcome of what um, the stickiness that's involved. So that's that's one thing. So now I want to talk about um, I'm gonna okay now the other topic that I think I need to discuss was the Mack game that's involved with polygamy. Now, of course, like I said, I'm in this group. I'm doing my research and I'm asking questions. And I've met two gentlemen and in the group, and they one is in a relationship with a woman. He's actually married to the woman. I've seen the pictures and everything. Smiles and everyone. Um, he said that he is trying to condition his wife to be okay with the polygamous ideology. So you married this woman. You realize that you're tired of having sex with her, but you don't want to cheat because you got a lot to lose. So now, what you're doing is trying to mentally condition her that it's the African way, it's for the benefit of the people if you allow your man to have a second wife. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong, but I think that you need to get with someone who already has that mindset instead of getting with someone and then trying to, get her to see things your way. It's I'll tell you a story about a friend of mine. Um, A gentleman. He was a friend of mine at one time. We were a lot closer then than we are now. You know, he kind of disclosed to me that he was in a relationship with a woman who, you know, he really loved her, he cared about her and everything, but he knew he had an appetite for different women. Um, he said that he can, it's the conquer thing with him. He wants to be able to see how far he can go because he was able. At first, the game was, let me see if I can get this girl. I can get this woman. Let me see if I can get her. So now he knows that he can get any woman he wants because he's worked on that. Now he's like, let me see if I can get my woman to allow me to have a menage a trois with her. So here comes again with the conditioning. So he's been working on her, you know, having these conversations with her, you know, and everything, asking her, does she find other women attractive? You know, just slowly but surely, just dropping the seeds in there. And, you know, there's a lot of naive women out there that don't even realize what their men are doing. Like, these men will play games with your brain if you're not swift. You know, and I'm not saying that she's not swift, but the fact that she was able to do that, you know, I mean, the fact that he was able to get her to that point and condition her because she was dead set against it in the beginning, but later she decided to do that to make him happy. And hey, and then you know, if you're a straight woman who allows your man to turn you into bisexual, that's something different. So anyway, long story short, the outcome was she ends up uh, meeting up with the girl on her own because she's turned out now, and now she likes women, or now she's bisexual. So now that she's been Pandora's box been open, um, you know, he had to leave her alone because she was now talking to the girl, and now she's, you know, having her own private time with the female, which he had a problem with. They ended up breaking up, long story short, over that, which was crazy. But this is what you wanted, you know. So anyhow, that's a little something. So I'm just saying, like, you know, all this conditioning, these guys don't even realize, you know, what they're doing. You know, there's sometimes it's just about that conquer or the control. Let me see what I can get away with. Let me see if I'm how much, you know, testing their manhood or their skills or whatever. They don't, I guess their insecurity of not being secure in themselves, that you are a man no matter what. You don't have to try to manipulate anybody in order to get those things. But I'm not a man, so I don't know. Anyhow, so that's something else. You know, so the game, the Mack game of the polygamy thing is to um, be able to. Oh, this is one woman had you know, she had posted a complaint saying that, you know, her husband is meeting all of these different women. He's interviewing these women without her. Now, from what I've seen and what I've heard, traditionally, the man is supposed to interview the second wife with the first wife because she too has to be involved in the choosing because she has to deal with her as well. Ask her questions. What type of you know foods do you cook, or do you know how to, or whatever questions that concerns her and the benefit of the family. Um, she should be involved in that. But what's happening is that he's the husband is telling her, oh well, why do you worry about it? I don't want to I don't want you to hassle over the judgment of whatever, because he just said something about it'll make it very sticky or whatever. So he's meeting all these women. Lord knows if he's sleeping with them or not, we don't know. But He's meeting all these women without her, and she has a problem with it. So that's, it could be the fact that he is messing around and don't want to marry any of these extra women. But he's saying he's interviewing them, and he hasn't found a likely character. But maybe he's discarding them after he's done with them. You never know. So it's just, that's just a game that I think might be happening. Like, you got the wife. Okay, she's in tune with you. She's okay with polygamy. Okay, now in the meantime, you got your wife at home, but now you still are allowed to play. And in the sake of saying, oh, I'm interviewing, you know, because there are promiscuous women out there that are okay with having sex with men without making them earn it. So maybe that's where he's benefiting at. So yeah, just a lot of things. The cool thing about polygamy is that